When danger strikes, we all know to call 911. It's our lifeline, the thing that brings us help when everything's falling apart. However, sometimes it's already too late. The following are raw, real-time recordings of people in their final moments, or the eerie calm before something unthinkable happens. And some end with silence, others in screams, but every single one leaves behind the same thing: horror. Welcome to Scary Mysteries, guys. Here are the 5 creepiest 911 calls that ended in absolute horror. Number 5. The call that gave it away.
She seemed to have the perfect life, a happy marriage, and no enemies. But investigators soon found that things were not as they appear.
On paper, Kelly Clayton had it all. She was 35 years old, smart, beautiful, a loving mom to 2 young children. She had met her handsome husband, Tom, back when he was playing minor league hockey in their hometown of Elmira, New York. And after his retirement from the sport, Tom found work with a company that helped people rebuild after home disasters, fires, floods, and that sort of thing. And they lived in a nice house and raised their kids together, and hid it very well that behind closed doors, things were not so picture perfect.
They seem like the perfect family.
She loved her kids. She loved her husband. She loved her life, the life that she thought she had.
And with Tom being the ex-athlete and alpha male, he was known to be a bit arrogant, even controlling. There were rumors that he was cheating on his wife. And Kelly had reportedly spoken to a divorce attorney and had even expressed fears about what might happen if she left him. She may not have had proof, but her instincts were dead on. And just after midnight on September 29th of 2015, the 911 call came in. Help me, my wife is dead. And she's lying on the floor, and there's blood everywhere.
Help me, my wife is dead.
How long has she been down?
I don't know, I just got home.
And Tom claimed he'd returned home to find Kelly brutally murdered, bludgeoned to death right there in their living room. The house was dark and quiet, with his children still sound asleep upstairs. Officers arrived at the grisly scene, and Kelly's face was so badly beaten that her own mother later said she was unrecognizable. And blood had pooled around her body, and the level of violence suggested rage, and lots of it.
Oh, she got blood on the wall, blood on the steps. Looks like she was attacked in bed. There's blood all over. She's been dragged.
Now, Tom's alibi was airtight, though. And he'd spent that evening at a friend's house playing poker, and several people vouched for him. However, the more he talked, the more police weren't really buying his story.
I think he attacked her. He has no blood on him. I checked. I don't know.
And for example, he wasn't asking the usual questions a traumatized husband might ask. He didn't seem all that concerned about who actually killed Kelly. Instead, he focused on whether or not he was a suspect. And there was something else. Well, Tom had very recently increased Kelly's life insurance policy. And that, my friends, is always a sign that something is surely up. In digging into Tom's background, investigators found out he made a call to a man named Michael Beard, a former employee Tom had fired months earlier. And Beard had a history of drug use and was desperate for money. And when police brought him in for questioning, he cracked. At first, he said Tom paid him to burn down the house, not to kill anyone. But after hours of questioning, Beard finally admitted the truth. And Tom Clayton had paid him $10,000 to straight up murder his wife. One of the most heartbreaking aspects of this whole case came from Tom and Kelly's 7-year-old daughter. And she had to explain how she had woken up the night of the murder after hearing a thumping and screaming. And she described a man with dark skin and a yellow sweatshirt, someone who had been in their home while their mother was hurt. That man was Michael Beard.
He was wearing jeans, a black long-sleeve shirt, and a mask.
Okay. What did the robber look like?
He looked like my dad.
And why do you say that? How did he look like your dad?
The mask and his shoes.
And Tom coldly had returned home that night, knowing exactly what was happening, called 911, and then went upstairs and slept next to his daughter, who had just heard her mother being killed. It was a level of emotional detachment that few people can achieve. And Tom Clayton's trial began in 2016, where cell phone records placed him in contact with Beard. And Beard testified that Tom promised him a payout for the job. The life insurance motive was also clear. But most damning was Tom's own daughter, who told investigators that she had seen Daddy's friend in the house that night. The jury ultimately deliberated for less than a day, and Clayton was found guilty of first-degree and second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. And Michael Beard was also convicted and sentenced to life behind bars. In the end, it wasn't a stranger who stole Kelly Clayton's life. It was the man who was supposed to love her, a husband who chose money over morality and who hired a killer, all while tucking his kids into bed. Number 4, a monster beneath the floorboards. Some killers have a reason, a motive, some even have a type. But others are driven by something so depraved and so far outside human comprehension, it's hard to believe they actually exist in the same world as the rest of us. Now, this is one of the more disturbing murder cases in modern American history, and so if you're squeamish, well, consider this your warning.
While they were still alive and gagged, I was going to drape them over the bathtub and cut off their head. And then hang them there and let the blood all drain out. So good and drained out.
In 2006, 26-year-old Kevin Ray Underwood lived in an apartment complex in Purcell, Oklahoma, surrounded by kids, families. He pretty much kept to himself, played video games, and worked at a local grocery store. He looked harmless enough, was a little awkward, maybe a loner type, lived in a small upstairs apartment, kept his blinds closed, spent most of his time online. He ran his blog as a means to connect with others, though that's not real human connection, as we all know. And in it was what you might expect from a young man who didn't socialize: rants about depression, loneliness, and sexual frustration. He also wrote about fantasies of killing and about eating human flesh. Now, in the moment, who cares, right? Who even knows if anyone read these, and if they did, it's just another weirdo behind a computer. No, in hindsight, these weren't just ramblings. They were warnings of events to come. And one post read, "If I ever do tell someone the things I think about, they'll freak out and call the cops on me." And he was right. On April 12th of 2006, 10-year-old Jamie Boleyn vanished from the same apartment complex where Underwood lived. Jamie had just been walking back from the library, and her father, a National Guardsman, reported her missing when she didn't come home. A frantic search unfolded. Neighbors, police, even strangers combed through the nearby alleys and empty lots. What nobody realized was that Jamie was already dead, and she hadn't wandered far, and she was just mere feet away, inside Kevin Ray Underwood's apartment the whole time.
A volunteer recalls knocking on Underwood's door.
"Have you seen Jamie?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Where did she go?" Because I just didn't assume it was him. And he said that she went down that breezeway, headed towards the library.
Now, she had knocked on his door before. He'd even talked to her a few times. And Jamie liked to chat, and she was trusting. Underwood planned to use that against her. Kidnapping and killing her was no spontaneous act. Underwood had planned it from the start. We know this because he kept a kill kit in his apartment. Inside it, a decorative meat tenderizer, a large serrated knife, a hacksaw, a roll of duct tape, and a wooden cutting board. He later told investigators he had been fantasizing about eating a child for years. So when Jamie knocked on his door that day, he was ready. He invited her in and they talked. He lured her deeper inside. And then when her back was turned, Underwood bludgeoned her with that meat tenderizer, suffocated her with the duct tape, and then assaulted her corpse. After that was done, well, he began preparing for her consumption. Police received several 911 calls from neighbors who hadn't seen anything directly happen, but noted that Kevin upstairs was a weird dude. weird enough that they might want to talk to him. When police got to Kevin's door, he was calm, polite, and cooperative, but detectives sensed something was off. He was too calm and too curious. One officer even later said it felt like he had rehearsed a script. When they brought him in for questioning, eventually the pressure was too much and he just let it out. "I'm a monster," he told them. "Go ahead and arrest me. She's in my apartment." He went on to describe the murder in detail and told detectives how he stored her body in a plastic container and explained what he wanted to do to her but couldn't bring himself to finish.
I was going to keep the body around for a couple of days. I was going to set the head on my desk so it could watch me. And then I was going to start butchering them and cooking them.
The officers later admitted that this level of detail, his emotionless delivery, and the sheer depravity of his plans were among the most disturbing things they'd ever encountered. When police entered his home, they found that storage container in the bedroom closet. Inside was Jamie's body, and the kill kit was nearby, neatly laid out in perfect order. His computer, of course, showed a disturbing search history: how to kidnap, how to kill, how to cook human flesh. The one journal entry from him read, "The taste of death. I want it. I need it. I dream of her screaming." Underwood didn't deny anything. In fact, he openly admitted that if he hadn't been caught, he would have done it again. He had detailed fantasies and a full blueprint of his next move. Because his crimes were so brutal, the Oklahoma court sought the death penalty, and in December of 2024, at the age of 45, Kevin was executed via lethal injection. Number 3, the Caffey family massacre.
I have to ask this because just having spent some time with you, I can't picture you as somebody that would want her family annihilated.
Terry and Penny Caffey were a God-fearing couple, raising their 3 kids down in the rural Texas town of Alba. Their home was structured and faith-centered, and their daughter Erin was bright and polite, at least on the surface. But things changed when she turned 16, because that's when she started sneaking out, skipping school, and most importantly, dating 19-year-old Charlie Wilkinson. Her parents didn't approve of Charlie. He wasn't raised like their daughter, plus the 3-year age gap was a bit too much.
There was just something about Charlie that just, it's like when you looked him in the eye, you could see right through his soul. It was like you could see right through him. I just sensed that something didn't seem right.
So Erin's parents told her to end it, but she just kept on seeing him in any way she could. They didn't understand what a true romance was, and the more Erin snuck out, the more she was punished and had her phone taken away. That's when she started telling Charlie things like, "I wish they were dead and I want them gone." Well, Charlie, being obsessed, could only hear so much before he had to do something. He couldn't stand to see his lady in distress, so he enlisted the help of his best friend, Charles Wade, and Wade's girlfriend, Bobby Johnson. They gathered weapons, picked a date, and the plan was simple: kill everyone in the house, torch it, and disappear with Erin. Erin also helped plan every detail, the layout of the home, and she helped write the script. On March 1st of 2008, in the middle of the night, the 3 accomplices pulled up to the Caffey home while Erin and Bobby waited in the car. Charlie and Charles then went inside. And Terry and Penny were asleep in bed when they woke up to the sound of their bedroom door opening. And in front of them, Charlie raised his gun and fired multiple rounds into the 2. And Terry was hit multiple times. They then stabbed and slashed Penny so viciously they nearly decapitated her. The attackers moved upstairs next. 13-year-old Matthew was stabbed to death in his room. 8-year-old Tyler was found under his bed, where he had tried to hide. With the family eliminated, they then poured lighter fluid throughout the house and set it ablaze. But here's the crazy part. Despite being shot 11 times in total, Terry was still alive. Bleeding profusely, he dragged himself 300 yards through the woods to a neighbor's home in a fight for survival that took more than an hour. The neighbor found him at their doorstep and called 911 to report what happened. Thanks to Terry, they knew exactly who had done the crime.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
This is Tommy Gaspin. I've got a man that's been shot out here at my house.
Okay, so he's been shot?
Yes, and we've also got a house on fire out here.
Terry would wake up in the hospital to tell the police that the reason he had the strength to fight through and make it was so he could bring justice to his murdered wife and 2 sons. He just didn't know his own daughter was behind it all along. Now, Erin had been left in the house tied up to make it look like she was all part of some brutal break-in, but it made no sense. I mean, why murder 3, try to kill a 4th, and leave 1 girl basically unharmed? Police quickly tracked down the other 3, where Charlie basically admitted to it all pretty quickly. He ultimately tried to lay blame on his true love, Erin, saying that she was the one who made him do it. Funny how fast love can turn on a dime like that. And Charlie and Charles were sentenced to life in prison without parole, and Bobby Johnson received 25 years. And Erin, tried as an adult, was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. And she won't be eligible for parole until 2048, when she'll be 56 years old. And Terry Caffey somehow forgave her, even visited her in prison, and wrote a book and built a new life. But no book or sermon can erase what happened in that house. And 3 lives ended, a home destroyed, and the mastermind behind it all was the one they loved and trusted most. Number 2, 2 bodies in the bedroom.
It's a story making national headlines.
Mom was killed first, then Dad.
This picture of Tyler Hadley taken at a party hours after he allegedly beat his mom and dad to death with a hammer.
At 17 years old, Tyler Hadley had been acting out of sorts for months, skipping school, using drugs, and getting into fights with his parents, Blake and Mary Jo. They were strict, but not cruel by any stretch. They loved their son and tried to keep him on track. And Tyler, though, was spiraling, hooked on ecstasy, Xanax, and weed. Even though he'd been to counseling and on other prescription meds, nothing seemed to work, and his mind was far from thinking clearly. Which is why we're talking about him today, because what he did to his folks wasn't just pure evil. It's what he did after that makes his story all that more messed up. On July 16, 2011, Tyler waited until his parents were home from work and acted like everything was normal. He then hid their phones on them and popped a couple of ecstasy pills to get himself quote-unquote hyped up. Then he stood behind his mother with a claw hammer and he brought it down on her head. His father heard the screams and came running, but Tyler attacked him too. Police later determined he struck each parent over 30 times. The hammer was later found between the bodies, crusted with blood, hair, and even bone fragments. But he could breathe a sigh of relief now, because Tyler was free to do whatever he wanted. At least, that's how he saw it. He dragged both bodies into the master bedroom and covered them with towels, books, and whatever else was around to help hide them. And then, as if nothing had happened, he cleaned up the visible blood, locked that bedroom door, and posted on Facebook, "Party at my house tonight. Hit me up." The music was bumping when over 60 teenagers showed up to the Hadley house that night. The drinks were flowing, people were laughing and dancing, taking pictures. Some noticed a smell, others noticed the locked bedroom door and Tyler snapping when people tried to open it. But whatever, bro. It was a straight-up killer party in more ways than one. And Tyler kept smiling and laughing, but at one point when he was feeling no pain, he pulled one of his friends aside and simply said, "I killed my parents." His friend thought he was joking, and Tyler insisted he wasn't, and that's when he showed him the blood-stained bedroom to prove it. He pointed to the bloody hammer and said, "I couldn't throw a party if they were still alive." The party ended, but his friend couldn't shake what he had been told. He waited until he left, and that 911 call still echoes with disbelief. "I think my friend just killed his parents. He said the bodies are in the bedroom."
After he told me, I didn't believe him because he's been my best friend forever. I would never suspect anything like this. And I was looking around. He told me if I look at enough, I could see signs. I looked on the floor, I could see signs of blood. And that's when I went around back and looked in his parents' bedroom.
Police responded immediately. When Tyler opened the door, still under the influence, he tried to play it cool. But the house had blood stains in the hallway, and furniture was out of place, so something was definitely up. And when they opened that bedroom door, they found the two bodies stacked and partially buried under towels and debris. And Tyler said he'd been planning the whole thing for weeks, that he wanted to throw a party like the ones he saw in the movies. But his parents wouldn't let him, so he got rid of them, and that was his reasoning. In 2014, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and that's at least what he deserves for planning, bragging about, and partying over his parents' corpses. Number 1. The killer Uber driver. When you step into an Uber, you don't think twice. You're headed to dinner, the airport, maybe just going home. And somebody shows up, you get in, and you trust them to get you to where you're going. But should you? Because on the night of February 20th of 2016, passengers in Kalamazoo, Michigan, unknowingly stepped into a vehicle driven by a man on a killing spree. In the end, multiple people were dead, and it all started with a 911 call that sounded like something from a nightmare. Around 5:42 p.m., a man called in saying, "Someone just shot at me from a black Chevy Equinox. He tried to kill me." The caller had been with his family at an apartment complex when a man in an Uber vehicle pulled up next to them and just opened fire without warning. Miraculously, no one was hit, but the shooter sped off, disappearing into the snowy Michigan streets. And that would have been enough for one night, but the shooter, 45-year-old Jason Dalton, was just getting started. The father of two had no criminal record and no history of violence. He was just an Uber driver, except the app on his phone turned demonic, and instead of just telling him where to pick people up and drop them off, according to him, it was telling him who to kill.
An Uber driver now charged with multiple counts of murder, 6 people dead, apparently killed at random.
After firing those first shots, Dalton picked up passengers, joked with them, and dropped them off like nothing was wrong. One couple later said their driver had acted strange, blowing through stop signs and driving erratically. More 911 calls came in. One woman reported a suspicious driver. Another described a black Equinox swerving through traffic. But there was no full picture yet. The police didn't know he was an Uber and picking up people. Then at 10:08 p.m. it all exploded. Another 911 call came in from Sealy Ford car dealership. There's been a shooting, and 2 people are down. I think they're dead.
Hi, we just drove by the Kia. What road are we on? 94 Business, and a guy just shot some people in the parking lot.
Okay. All right. Did you hear shots fired? Is that?
Yeah, that's what made us look. And there were 2 guys laying on the ground and one guy pointing a gun at them.
All right.
Outside the dealership, Dalton had pulled up and gunned down a father and son, Richard and Tyler Smith, as they looked at cars. Within 15 minutes, another call came in from the parking lot of a Cracker Barrel, and they said, "We heard gunshots. 4, maybe 5. People are screaming." Dalton had just fired into a car full of people, and 4 women were killed. Mary Jo Nye, Barbara Hawthorne, Dorothy Brown, and Mary Lou Nye. A teenage girl named Abigail Kopp was shot in the head and left for dead while helping her wounded friend, who luckily survived. And by this point, the city was in chaos. Dispatch lines were flooded. Police were using eyewitness 911 reports to slowly piece together the pattern. The driver was a heavy-set white male, glasses with short-cropped hair. Officers from multiple agencies swarmed the area. License plate readers were activated. 911 dispatchers coordinated sightings in real time. And then at 12:40 a.m., another 911 call. We think we've got him. The suspect's vehicle is stopped. Officers approaching. Jason Dalton was pulled from his vehicle without incident. He was wearing a bulletproof vest and had a semi-automatic handgun in his waistband. He showed no emotion because, in his eyes, it wasn't his fault. As I mentioned, he claimed that when he opened that Uber app, it changed. The symbol turned demonic. He said it started controlling him and telling him who to kill. He referred to it as the devil's head and said he'd become a puppet. Psych evaluations later found Dalton competent to stand trial. There were no clear signs of psychosis. Just a man who claimed he lost control and committed one of the most senseless mass killings in Michigan history. In court, having originally pleaded not guilty, he changed his plea at the start of jury selection, saying, "I've wanted this for quite a while. I've wanted to plead guilty and let it be done." After that, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Uber changed some of their background protocols after this, but the Jason Dalton case really is almost unstoppable no matter what you do. A perfect storm of the ordinary becoming unthinkable. He wasn't on a watch list, and he wasn't radicalized. He wasn't even suspected of anything. He was your Uber driver, pulling up on time, phone-mounted, 5-star rating. Only in between rides, he was murdering strangers at random, without mercy. And so there were the 5 creepiest 911 calls that ended in absolute horror. Every one of these calls started with hope that someone on the other end would save them, but in these 5 cases, help didn't arrive in time, or the danger was already too close. For more cases that dig even deeper, subscribe to Scary Mysteries and check out our Patreon for extended cuts in cases too intense for YouTube. And until next time, y'all stay safe out there. I'll see you over in the next one.